Welcome to Chanan Academy. So today we'll be talking about the different types of number, and the first number we'll talk about is natural numbers. So what is natural numbers? Natural numbers are counting numbers. They are counting numbers. Numbers used for counting, such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So numbers like 100 are also natural numbers. 2000, they are natural numbers. Numbers that are used for counting, they are counting numbers. All right. Natural number are denoted as n. Next one we'll be talking about is the whole numbers. It's denoted by W. So what are whole numbers? Whole numbers are natural number including 0. So we talked about a natural number in the previous one, which are number 1. We said they are counting numbers starting from 1, 2, 3, and so on. But for whole numbers, it includes 0. It starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So these are whole numbers. So the difference between a whole number and a natural number is that a whole number starts from 0, but natural number starts from 1. So that's the major difference between the both of them. The next one we'll be talking about is the integer, denoted as Z. So integers are number line. So it's starting from the negative value up to the positive value. So let's say integers are whole numbers. They are whole numbers and they are negative counterpart. So what this means is that integer starts from the negative side. So what this means is that integer starts from the negative side. Let's say minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So this is the set of integers. You can say minus 24 is an integer. 24 is also an integer. So integers are positive and negative value, including 0. So that's integers. So you can see that number 1, we talked about the natural number, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. They are counting numbers. The whole numbers are natural number, including 0, while the integers are whole numbers, including the negative values. All right, so let's move to the next one. The next one is the even numbers. So even numbers are numbers that are divisible by 2. So they are numbers that are divisible by 2. So example of these numbers are 2, 4, 6, 8, 20, and 0. So 0 is an even number. You must know that 0 is an even number. If you watched our previous video where we're giving the properties of the operations, the arithmetic operations, we talked about 0 divide by any value. So if it is 0, let's say if it is 0 divided by 2, the answer is 0. So that's divisible. It divides it. Let's take this off. How about 5 divided by 2? 2 can go into 5. The answer will be 2.5. Even numbers are numbers that are divisible by 2 without any remainder. You must also know that numbers such as -6 are even number. 8 are even number. So if you say, let's take this off, negative 8 divided by 2, the result is negative 4. Read that space. Okay. Negative 8 divided by 2, the result is negative 4. So this is divisible by 2. So it is an 8 is an even number. Negative value 6 is an even number. All right, the next one is the odd numbers. Odd numbers are numbers that are not divisible by 2. They are numbers not divisible by 2. So odd numbers are numbers not divisible by 2. Example of these numbers are negative 5, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so on. So they are not divisible by 2. That's what odd numbers are. All right, so we'll talk about the prime number. So prime numbers are numbers that are greater than 1 with only 2 factors, 1 and itself. So prime numbers are numbers that are greater than 1 with only 2 factors, and the factors are 1 and itself. So before we continue, let me talk about what is factor. So for those of you that don't know what is factor, so let's talk about what is factor. Now, a factor of a number is a whole number that divides another number exactly without remainder. So let's try. Let's say 8, example 8 divide by 2. The answer is 4. So 2 is a factor of 8 because it divides 8 without any remainder. So we can also say 8 divided by 4, the result is 2. So 4 is a factor of 8. Also, we can say 8 divided by 1, the result is 8. 1 is a factor of 8. We can also say 8 divided by 8, the result is what? 1. So 8 is also a factor of 8. So these are the factors of 8. So factors of 8 are, we have 1, we have 2, we have 4, and we have 8. So these are the factors of 8. As a factor is a number that can multiply another whole number to get the original number. So like our former example, we said 8. So if we say 2 multiply by 4, the result is 8. So 2 is a factor and 4 is also a factor. So let's say 8 multiplied by 1, the result is 8. So 8 is a factor and 1 is also a factor. So we can say 2 is a factor of 8, 4 is a factor of 8, 8 is a factor of 8, and 1 is a factor of 8. All right, I haven't talked about factor, so let's go back to prime numbers. All right, so prime numbers are numbers greater than 1 with only 2 factors. our previous example when we're talking about factor of 8 or factor. So the factors of 8 are 1, 2, 4, and 8. So 8 has 4 factors, but prime number says the number must have just 2 factors. So what are numbers that can be divisible by only 2 numbers? So we have numbers like, so 8 is not a prime number because it has 4 factors. Okay. 4 factors. 4 factors. So let's get example of prime numbers. So how about we check the factors of 2? Factors of 2 are 1 and 2. So we have only 2 factors for the number 2. So we can say this is a prime number. So 2 is a prime number. So let's give an example of prime numbers. Numbers that have just 2 factors. We have 2, we have 3, we have 5, 7, 11, 13, and so on. So they are much. There are numbers that have, if you check these numbers, they have just 2 factors. Only 2 numbers can divide them. For 2, it's only 1 and 2 that can divide it. For 3, it's only 1 and 3. For 5 rather, it's only 1 and 5. For 7, only 1 and 7. For 11, only 1 and 11. And for 13, only 1 and 13. So these are prime numbers. They only have 2 factors and they are greater than 1. That tells you that 1 is not a prime number. Minus 2 is not a prime number. 3 minus 3 is not a prime number. So any negative value is not a prime number. It must be positive and it must be greater than 1. And it must have just 2 factors, 1 and itself. Alright, thank you. So let's move on to the next one.
The next number we're talking about is a composite number. And these are numbers with more than 2 factors. So numbers such as 4, 6, 8, 9, 12, and so on. So these numbers have more than 1 factors. Example, the factors of 4 are 1, 2, 4. So these are the numbers, their factors are more than 2. Alright, so let's talk about the next one. Alright, the next number we'll be talking about now is the rational number, denoted as Q. These are numbers that can be expressed as fraction, P over Q, where Q is not where Q is not equal to 0. Where Q is not equal to 0. Now, note, integrals are also rational number. So for example, let's make a little box here so we can explain. So if you don't know why Q is not equal to 0, I think you should watch our previous video that talked about the properties of the basic operations, so you understand. But however, I'll just explain a bit. So why Q cannot be equal to 0 is that if we have any value that is divided by 0, it's undefined. If you type it on your calculator, maybe any value 2 or 4 or 5 divide by 0, it will give you error because it's undefined. So rational numbers are numbers that can be expressed as fraction. In our subsequent videos I will post to talk about fraction, but for now let's explain. So we have 2 over 3. This is a rational number. We have 1 over 4. So these are all fractions. And if you see the notes, it says integrals are also rational numbers. The reason why integrals are rational numbers is because now 5 can be expressed as 5 over 1. So 5 is an integer, but it can also be expressed as a fraction, which is 5 all over 1. So these are all rational numbers. So rational numbers are numbers that can be expressed as fraction, p over q, where q is not equal to 0. Like I said, if you don't know why q is not equal to 0, please check our previous video that talked about the properties of the basic operations. So we talked about this in our previous video. And you should also know that integers are also rational numbers, and the reason is that they can also be expressed as fraction, like the one I just explained. If you have, let's say for example, you have 6 can also be expressed as 6 over 1, which is also a fraction. All right, the next type of number we'll be talking about is the irrational numbers. These are numbers that can't be expressed as fraction. Their decimal are non-terminating and non-repeating, which means these numbers, their decimals. Let's take for example, if we say root 2, the result is going to be 1.4, 142, 13, and so on. You keep writing, the numbers keep going, and also it's not repeating. Root 2 is an irrational number. So let me give you another example that is an irrational. Pi is an irrational number. Okay, some people may miss numbers such as this. Let's say 1 divided by 3 is not an irrational number, because you can say, okay, the 1 divided by 3, the result is 0.33333, and so on. But if you look at the definition of irrational number, it says their decimal are non-terminating, which means the decimal keeps going. It is true, 1 over 3, their decimal keeps going, 3333, 0.3333 keeps going. But however, you should look at the other line. It also say non-repeating, meaning it's not giving you the same value. So this is not an irrational number. But pi and root 2 are both irrational numbers. The next number we'll talk about is the real number, denoted as r. So all rational number and irrational numbers are all real numbers. So the next number we'll be talking about is the imaginary number, and these are numbers involving the square root of negative values. It is often denoted as I. I is equal to root minus 1. So example of these numbers are 2i, 5i. So this, any value that comes with I after the value, where I is known as the imaginary numbers, those are all imaginary numbers. Recall, imaginary numbers, okay, let me say it again. Imaginary numbers involves the square root of negative values. So if you have the square root of let's say minus 5, so it can be denoted as 5i, because I is already root minus 1, so it's an imaginary number. I hope you understand that. So the square root of negative values are imaginary numbers. Right, so this is the last one we'll be talking about in this video. So complex numbers. Complex numbers are numbers in the form of a plus bi, where a and b are real numbers and I is the imaginary number. Can have value like 2 plus 3i. Sorry, this is I. This is a complex number. It has a real number and an imaginary number. So it's a complex number. All right, we've come to the end of today's class. Thank you for watching, and if you have any question concerning the class, please do well to drop it in your comment section, and don't forget to share and subscribe. Thank you, and bye for now.